Hey guys, this is Mrs. Harbin and this is chapter 4. Today we are going to look at radical functions. Our lesson objective for today is that you, the student, will restrict the domain of a function that is not one-to-one so that the inverse is a function. Graph radical functions and give their domains. Now remember, restricting the domain is just kind of like setting an interval, that you only want to look at one piece of the function. So we'll look at restricting the domain so that we can take the inverse of just that piece. That will come in handy when we're graphing radical functions as well. A radical function is a function containing at least one variable in the radicand. So just to review some quick terminology in case you have forgotten. All right, this is a radical symbol, and this symbol combined with any numbers or variables or letters underneath it is a radical, and this piece underneath the radical symbol is the radicand. So a radical function has at least one variable in the radicand. And you can see that if I had this right here, this would be, if I said y equals root of 3x, that would be a radical function. Now you can have a function with a root symbol. So we might have, for example, again, pardon my handwriting here, that y equals 7 minus the square root of 2. This is not a radical function. Even though it does have a radical, it does not have a variable in the radicand. So a radical function has a variable in the radicand. A square root function is a type of radical function, and the simplest form of a square root function is f of x equals square root of x. This indicates only the positive or principal square root. Now, if you remember when we used to find perfect squares, back in the day, you might be asked to find, for example, the square root of 64, and you knew that your answer had to be either plus or minus, whatever the root was in this case, plus or minus 8. Because positive 8 times positive 8 is 64, and negative 8 times negative 8 is 64. The problem with a square root function is if we graphed both of the positive and the negative values, we would get a graph that looks like this. Okay, it would look something like this. And in that case, that's not a function because it doesn't pass the vertical line test. So in order to keep the square root function an actual function, we're only dealing with the principal or the positive square root. Okay, in that case, our graph looks something like this. Where this is the x-axis, and the part that's down here below the x-axis is not what we're concerned with. We have restricted that in a way. There's a quick sketch for you on an actual Cartesian plane. Let's find the function described by the rule. H of x equals root x plus 3, where the domain is 0, -3, 1, 4, and 6. We're going to plug in each of those values and simplify. So when we plug in 0, we get square root of 3. When we plug in -3, we get the square root of 0, which is 0. When we plug in 1, we get 2, square root of 4, which is 2. And when we plug in 4, we get the square root of 7, which cannot be simplified. So our function rule there is 0, root 3, -3, 0, 1, 2, and 4, root 7. Those are the different coordinates there based on the domain that was given to us. Okay, oh, last one I forgot. 6, we get square root of 9, which is 3. So in this function, they've restricted the domain by giving us certain points, so we're just being asked to find the other points in that function, the y values. The domain of the square root function is restricted to x must be greater than or equal to 0. Now think why that is. What if x was -1 or -2? Hopefully you remember that we can't take negative roots, at least not in the world of real numbers. When we get into imaginary numbers, just a really quick note about imaginary numbers. Don't forget that the square root of -1 is I, and that is where we get that little imaginary number notation from. There is a video saved on my playlist about imaginary numbers and how they're not really imaginary. That's really a misnomer for them. If you're interested in the history of imaginary numbers and why they're even called that, check out that video on our playlist. Right. Rational functions, to switch gears here, don't forget rational functions are basically fractions, okay, functions written as fractions. They required restrictions so that the denominator was not 0. If you remember when we were solving and dealing with rational functions, we had to make sure the denominator was not 0 so that our function was not undefined. So we've already dealt with some restrictions already. So now we're just going to continue those restrictions with some other functions. Radical functions, we have to restrict it so that the radicand is non-negative. Rational functions, we can't have a denominator of 0. What if we had both a radical and a rational function? It was a radical rational function, then we would have multiple restrictions because our denominator couldn't be 0 and any radicands could be non-negative. Let's find the domain of this function. Basically, we're going to find out everything that we don't want it to be. We're going to find those places where we can't have that denominator or can't have that domain value, and we'll write then our restrictions accordingly. So we have 3 times 4 minus 3x minus 7. The 4 minus 3x is under the radical symbol, and the 7 is not. So we know that whatever is under the radical symbol has to be greater than or equal to 0. So we're going to pull out just that piece. We don't really care about the 3 and the negative 7 when we're dealing with a domain because those aren't going to affect any of our restrictions. We just need this piece to be greater than or equal to 0. We will then solve for x, and when we do so, we find that x must be less than or equal to 4/3. So our domain restriction is that x must be less than or equal to 4/3. We would write that for our domain of G. We've got this fancy curly brackets here, x, and then straight bar, x must be less than or equal to 4/3. So when we're talking about x is restricted to this domain. Let's find the domain of this one. See if you can do this one on your own. Pause the video and come back when you're ready to check your work. Okay, so we know that the radicand has to be greater than or equal to 0. So we're going to take the radicand, which is 5x plus 7, and set it equal to 0, right? That's probably what you did, and you probably came up with this domain restriction. However, you may not have noticed the index. The index here is 3. Previously, we were dealing with square roots and even root. But since the index is 3, it's odd, no restrictions are needed. Why not? Well, think about it. If we said we can never take a negative number and square it, we're always going to get a positive number. So negative 2 squared, we're always going to get a positive 4. We can't ever have a negative number under the root symbol there. But we can take a negative number and cube it and still get a negative number. So it is possible to find the cubed root of a negative number. It's not possible to find the square root of a negative number, but it is possible to find the cubed root of a negative number. Take negative 8, for example. If I wanted to find the cubed root of negative 8, what number times itself 3 times equals negative 8? Hopefully you said negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 is in fact negative 8. So we can find odd roots of negative numbers. Those are not imaginary. So since the index is odd here, we don't have to set any restrictions. So our domain, therefore, all real numbers. Let's find the domain of this function. Now this is one of those radical rational functions. So we're going to have to set a couple of different restrictions here. We do have a radicand that we need to worry about with an even index, so we definitely need to set the domain restriction there. And because we also have a denominator, then we also have that restriction that neither of these can be equal to 0. So let's set up our restrictions. The first restriction is that our radicand has to be greater than or equal to 0. So x minus 1 is greater than or equal to 0. Our second restriction, we'll solve for x there. Our second restriction is that this cannot equal 0, this part of our denominator, our factor there. So we would set it up to say x minus 2 is not equal to 0 and solve for x, and we would then find that x cannot be equal to 2, does not equal 2. Now, not only can this not equal 0, but because this is also being multiplied, it's also a factor, it also cannot be equal to 0. So we're going to say x minus 1, or the root of x minus 1, cannot equal 0. We're going to solve for x by squaring both sides, which gives us x minus 1 equals 0. And then solving for x, x cannot equal to 1. So we have three different pieces, and we're going to write that kind of all as one. We have x must be greater than or equal to 1, it cannot equal 2, and it cannot equal 1. Therefore, our domain must be greater than 1 and not equal to 2. Okay, here we said it can be greater than or equal to 1, but then we found, nope, it really can't be equal to 1. So it must just be greater than 1. With this exception, it can be greater than 1 except for 2. So we had multiple domain restrictions we had to find there. Let's take a look at this graph. This graph should be familiar to you. This is the x squared graph, the quadratic graph, the famous parabola. This is an even function. X squared is an even function because this exponent there is even. It's reflected over the y-axis. We know that's an even function. But even functions are not one-to-one. So if a function is not one-to-one, then their inverses are not functions. We could find the inverse of this, but it wouldn't be a function because the original function is not one-to-one. However, we can restrict the domain, and then we would be able to find an inverse function if we restricted our domain. Remember, a function must be one-to-one to have an inverse function. Every function can have an inverse. It might be an inverse relation, but in order for it to be an inverse function, the original function has to be one-to-one. So it's possible to find an inverse relation for any function. So let's take this x squared plus 4 and find the inverse relation. We know it's not a function because our original function is not one-to-one. Now we could draw our identity y equals x there, and then reflect our points over the line, but we're going to solve it algebraically. So the first thing we're going to do is take our original function and write it in terms of y. So instead of f of x equals x2 plus 4, we're going to write y equals x squared plus 4. We'll then flip-flop, switch our x and y, and we get x equals y squared plus 4. We will then solve for y, and we get y equals plus or minus square root of x minus 4. Now, this is not a function, so we can't replace our y with f to the negative 1x. It is a relation, so we can write r to the negative 1x. We're then going to graph that inverse. Let's see what that looks like graphed. Okay, here is our x equals y line, our line of reflection, and you can see that our original function has been reflected over here. Now, our original function was not one-to-one, and if you look at the inverse is not a function. It doesn't pass the vertical line test. However, if we had only looked at the blue portion of the function, then our inverse of just that portion, the blue portion down here, is in fact a function. So we can restrict the domain so that our inverses are functions. F has to be restricted because the square root of x minus 4 cannot equal 0. Let's find the inverse function of f of x equals negative root x minus 4. Working backwards, we're going to replace our f of x with y. We're going to flip-flop our x and y and solve for y. I'm going through this very quickly. If you get lost in these algebra steps, make sure you write down the questions that you have. And we find out that y equals x squared plus 4. So the inverse relation of negative root x minus 4 is x squared plus 4. That brings us back to our original function there. Okay, but x must be less than or equal to 0. We're looking at our graphs at the red portion of the graph in that case. I think I hit the wrong button. All right, so today we restricted the domain of a function that was not one-to-one so that the inverse was a function. We graphed radical functions. You saw that radical function graph that looked